Hello, everyone. Thank you for coming. Hope you had a great first couple of days of class. My name is Matthew Joseph. I'm a director of instruction. This is he's going, and we'll be teaching for today about mock technical interview workshop as part of Google Developer Student Club. So let's get started.
So today we'll be going over a bunch of different things about how the application process works, the different pieces of that. So online assessments, so think of LeetCode, HackerRank. Think of it's pretty much like CSE 101 homeworks or quizzes that you might have. And we'll also go through what a cool interview looks like, common topics or problems you might be asked at those technical interviews. Following that, the main chunk is when we actually will be doing peer interviewing. So we'll partner everyone up and you can have a chance to get some practice talking as if it were an actual interview. Finally, we'll end it off with an actual demo of what it will look like between two officers up front. So, off, what does the application process look like? So, this general timeline shows when these applications typically open. Again, this is all generic information. So, depending on the company, it will all change. And also, this is very iffy as well. So, typically, companies start to open up their applications for the following summer. In the previous summer, applications will open early summer for the following summer. However, the prime application time, so when almost all applications are open for a lot of the big companies, happens around early fall. And because most companies do their applications on a rolling basis, you typically want to apply early because if they fill up, they'll close the application. So make sure to apply early. Typically think about that as the early fall, but if you want to get ahead of the game, you can even start in the summer. You'll often hear back if you apply in the fall around November time, with many companies kind of closing down around December. December is typically known as the dead month for applying, simply because that's when people go on vacation. They have to do their performance reviews, so they're not really focusing on interviewing new applicants. Applications tend to open up again in January, where you can continue to apply. But again, because all these applications are on a rolling basis, there will be a small trend of less applications at this time. Most applications at especially large companies will close early spring. You still might be able to find some applications open, especially with smaller companies. But for the most part, if you want to apply and get an internship, you want to do it early in the fall or even the summer. So what does it look like when you're actually applying? The first step is to fill out the online application form. This is typically a Workday form where you put in your resume, a little bit of information about you, what school you could go to, your GPA, and all that information.
One step that I like to use to help automate the process a lot is a Chrome extension called Simplify. We are not like technically sponsoring it, but it's a recommendation I use. It helps automate the process. You just automatically fills a lot of the information in terms of the past history, school, and all that, and you just click a few extra buttons, but makes the mundane process a lot more faster.
I get a raise of hands. Who here has actually tried to apply to internships in the past year or so? A good amount of you. So many of you guys have seen the processes. Probably have gotten annoyed about how many times you've had to re-enter the same information. But yeah, the online application form is the very first step into getting an internship. And so, yeah, your question.
Yeah, Simplify. Look up Simplify.
First online application form. If you're selected to move on to the next stage, it'll typically be in the form of an online assessment, also known as an OA. The online assessments are what you'll see when you go practicing LeetCode, HackerRank, a bunch of that. We'll talk about those later on, but those tend to be those a couple of problems that you'll do online and get a score from it. That score will then be sent to the company, and if they like the score you got on your online assessment in combination with what you put on your online application form, you'll be moved on to the next step. So the next steps, so the recruiter call and the actual interviews, those kind of come hand in hand. So what typically comes first is the recruiter call, where a recruiter from that company, who tends to not be someone that comes from your field, so it might be the generic hiring manager or the recruiter, will call you, give you a bit of information about what the next steps will be. This tends to not be a very difficult talk because they're mostly just letting you know, making sure you have, if you have any questions to answer them, ask them now. The behavioral and technical interview. Today we'll be covering mostly the technical interview, but this is where you'll actually go face to face with someone from the company, more particularly the team that you'll be working with. And they'll ask you some questions. Again, depending on whether it's a behavioral interview or technical interview, it will be different things. We'll be focused on technical interviews, which we'll get to in a bit.
So as Cohen mentioned earlier, after you initially fill out the application form, online assessments or OAs are usually automatically sent before they resume or screen your resume, or sometimes after screening. This honestly depends on the company, and this is through email. And this OA these OAs are usually LeetCode styled problems taken on HackerRank, CodeSignal, etc. And you're given like 45 minutes to an hour to complete 2 to 3 problems. And this is the first step before interview calls. So you want to be prepared. And usually this has a 1 to 2 week expiration date. So either you can practice during the first week and take it during the second week, or if you're prepared, just take it right away.
Once you get past the online assessment, you'll be given a technical interview or behavioral interview. Again, we'll be going over the technical interview here. This is a live phone or video interview, typically on Zoom, Google Meet, Microsoft Teams, whatever that company is working with. It can range from a variety of times, but typically they're between 45 minutes to an hour. I have seen ones as long as 2 hours, but those are the kind of the edge cases there. Technical interviews will tend to be similar to those of the OAs. So again, think of those LeetCode problems you may have practiced before. Can I just raise a hand? Who here has done LeetCode before or anything similar to that? We'll be working with the problem. So the main difference in OA and a technical interview is, one, you're live in front of someone else, and you want to be talking through your solution. So the goal is not just to get something that passes all the tests, but is to see whether or not your thought process is clear and concise. So for instance, are you thinking about the problems the right way? When you dive into it, are you thinking about data structure, or are you just silently working on it? So the main idea here is to make sure as you're going through it that you're talking about why you're making some different decisions. And it's a good time for you to ask questions if you have any, because not all problems are instantly understandable. So here you can ask about what exactly is the interviewer looking for. And so we'll practice this in a bit, but the main idea that we'll see here is that you'll tend to be given a LeetCode style problem that you need to work out loud, in addition to also write it down. Other question they might ask is for you to talk about things on your resume. So this is for if you've done a project that might be similar to what that team is doing. You want to talk a bit about how that has really shaped your career as a student. So for instance, I worked on a website and I might have used React, and that team used React a lot. I could talk about what I've done with React to help build that website. And yeah, let's move on.
So trying to solve the problem itself, these are like 14 patterns which are very applicable to whatever problem you're solving. If you're trying to solve any problems, you can't think of anything to solve an obvious solution to it. It's typically using these 14 styles of attack. For example, sliding window or 2-pointers are very common ways, strategies to solve a problem. If you're on our Discord, I just dropped a link in there in our workshop channel. So a link to our slides and a link to this website that explains all these patterns will be a good use. But the main thing about these topics is you want to be almost like know it on the back of your hand. Things like when you're starting to code, you don't know how to write a for loop or while loop, or you might know, but it might take a couple of tries, or you have to think about it, or you think really hard, you might have some errors when you're typing it out. But now in our stage of maybe in college or as a senior, you can write for loops, while loops in your sleep. You can do it without even thinking about it at all. You should try to have the same strategy with these topics. You don't want to just like know a problem like, yeah, I kind of know sliding window. I know the concept of you grow and increase the window. No, you want to code it up without having any errors, without thinking of like, how do I apply the problem? So if you have that type of expertise on these topics, lets you apply these solutions to the problem itself. right? These are just generic solutions and you apply it to the problem. So yeah, a link to this is in our Discord. Another resource which is really useful is a YouTube channel called Neat Code instead of Lead Code instead of the L, it's the N. But he's a really good channel for explaining a lot of these legal problems and explains in a really concise way. With that, we're gonna let you guys try to tackle legal problem itself. It's the first legal problem called two-sum. And the goal of this is try to simulate an interview process itself. So get into pairs or 3 or 4, but one person be the interviewer, another person be the interviewee. And how you should kind of do it is have one person say the problem out loud to the other person, and then as an interviewee, take notes on what the problem is, because typically in an interview, you won't have like the description right next to you. You were just given a text file or like a code space and just type it out immediately. So take notes on what they're telling you, ask any clarifying questions, and then talk out your solution, go through examples and so on and so forth. So if you just go to this website, or if you go to the slides in our Discord, it should just be lead code number 1, two-sum, and we'll give it around 20 minutes. So we'll get back around 6 o'clock, 6:10. And yeah, if you have any questions on how to solve the problem or anything like that, we're more than happy to answer. So just get into pairs, meet a new friend, or talk to an existing friend, and then go through the problem. Okay, everyone, it is around 6 o'clock and it looks like everyone is pretty much done with the interview prep simulation. So I think we'll try to do it on our own. So I will be the interviewee. Cohen will try to interview me, and we'll try to simulate how we'd like to how you kind of ideally want to tackle an interview. I will say I am a student just like you, so I'm not an expert in any way, shape, or form of how, or I'm not giving you like the one trick that all doctors hate, but this is kind of like guidelines and like kind of how to tackle it, I guess.
All right. So as an interview, I'll start off by asking the question. So given an array of integer nums and an integer target, return indices of the two numbers such that they add up to the target. You may assume that each input would have exactly one solution, and you may not use the same element twice. You can return the answer in any order.
Oh wait, sorry. So one thing I first is even before coding, I switched to Python. I would recommend using Python because it's almost like writing English after a certain point. There's the least number of syntax that you need to worry about. Java or C just has a lot of extra in syntax, but if you want to do that, more power to you. But with this, well, one thing I've noticed when when Cohen was telling me the problem is the inputs I'm given as an array of ints, which is named nums, which is highlighted in the input here, in the arguments here, and then integer will be the target will be just an integer itself. There's only one solution, so I don't have to worry about trying to find other ones if I find one, and we can use the same element in index, so that helps a lot in terms of a lot of cases. What is now? I'll ask him like, what is the return type?
So the return type for this problem would be the indices of the elements that you want to add together to get to the target.
Okay, sweet. With that, I'll try to think of some edge cases, but for now, it seems like the array of ints can just be any integer inside the array. The side of the array can be any size, and then target can be any number as well. I can't think of any edge cases. I've like if you're just given one array of the length is just one of nums, and that could be an edge case, but it's given that it'll be at least two, so that seems fine as well. And there's only one valid solution. It's not like there won't be a solution, right? There's always a given solution. So edge case like that, I think there's only one I can think of, but they handle it in here. So with that, I think a very brute force. What I'm thinking about this, how would I tackle it if I'm just doing it on my own? I want to see like every combination right here. Can you see properly? Should I go into like the light theme, or is this good for you guys? Can you see properly? Yeah, okay, cool, sweet. Oh, can you darken it? There you go, sweet. Okay. You want to have every combination here, right? You want to try every single number of like 2, 7, 2, 11, 2, 15, and see if it adds up to target 9. So right here, as if 2, 7, when I add it up, it automatically reaches target 9 and return, just 0 and 1 here. But let's say like 2 and 11, that's 13, 2 and 15, that's 17, 7, 11, that's 18, 7, 15, that's 22, so on and so forth. Let's try every combination and see what indices meet the target. So I think that is a pretty simple solution. It's a brute force. I'd recommend just doing the most brute force solution just to get a solution in hand. Solution for that. So I check. I'm trying to do every combination, so I'll have 2 for loops in itself. So target, let's return. And we're pretty much guaranteed. It says we're guaranteed the solution, but we'll just return -1, -1 just for sometimes compilers like just having return type at the end at the return type. But yeah, let's run this. Oh well, actually before I run it, simulating my if there's any errors in this code. But from the way I'm looking at it, seems fine. There's no obvious syntax here. Everything's ended properly. If I go through here, for example, like 3, 2, 4, this is going through every index in here, and then every other number beyond that. So over here, it's 3. 3 plus 2 is 5, is not the target. 3 plus 4 is not the target. That's 7. And then now at 2, which return 1 and 2. Would you?
Yeah, so when you show an interviewer your code, even if it works perfectly, the interviewer will typically have questions for you, whether it's about what you did or certain questions analyzing this code. So a very common question is to ask about time complexity or how long a algorithm will take. You'll learn a lot more about this in classes like CSE 101 or 102. So in this case, I would ask Matthew, what is the time complexity of this solution?
Yep. So in this, since it's typically 2 for loops and we're going through every element in each for loop, this would be an O of n squared, right? The worst case in this is that this for loop goes through every element in here, and then in this for loop, it goes through every element as well, right? It's just I plus 1, but again, it's not n plus 1, it's just O of n. So yeah, O of n squared, you have a for loop.
If you don't fully understand the concept of time complexity, don't worry about it. You'll learn it in the future. Yeah, question.
So typically, I think since it's an easy problem, they give you more examples. They might just give you one example and then example because of you. All you see is just like this. So that's why I took notes here of like what my inputs will be. Sometimes they won't even give you this like argument here. They just give you a blank space and you think, okay, I've defined this. I know what my inputs will be, because typically they won't even include this type what the input type will be. So what the inputs will be, I had some small notes like, okay, so there's going to be a guaranteed solution. I can use the same index. And it's also important to note the return type, right? I could have returned just nums of I, nums of j, but no, the index. Yes. Yeah.
The interviewers want to help you. They want to make sure that you are understanding the problem so they can see how well can you solve the problem. So if you don't understand the problem or mishear something, they want to help to make sure. So it's okay to ask questions, clarifications. If you even want an example, I'm sure they're more than happy to help give an example for that problem. Unless it's a very complicated input and output, they might not be able to give exact examples, but for the most part, they're more than willing to help with these types of problems. So additionally, one follow-up problem to this would be, hey, you've done this in O of n squared time. Is there a way you could do this in a faster manner?
Yeah. So before that, let me just run it, make sure it looks clean in my head. But yeah, okay, runs there, runs the example cases, and if I submit it, yes, technically submits, but does take a long time. Runtime is pretty large, but also LeetCode runtime, take with a grain of salt. Every time I run it, sometimes it just gives me completely different numbers. But instead, anyways, yes, I think I can optimize it. This is a very brute force solution of trying every combination, but I can add some intelligence into this in the sense of have some memory, right? Rather than just trying every combination, I like try 211, 27, 211, 215, and then go to 7 and onwards. I can try to remember, okay, I've already seen 2, I've already seen 7. So when I get to 11, I can look back at my history, back at my memory, and see maybe have I already seen this number. So with that, I can try to come with a solution. For all the input you've seen, right? So Python is a some like a loop. It's open. The code in the back end is which is the nature of a list, but in reality, yeah, but ideally, a set is just all one-time lookup. And then for in range, like the element is so I, and then the difference is target minus element, right? So if this difference is in the scene set, just return diff. Else, if it's not in there, we just add this element that we are currently at and add it to the scene set. And we keep on going. And then if it doesn't hit this, return negative one. So yeah, this looks initially this might look good to me. There's no other syntax errors. If I'm just going through here, let's go through an example right here. And initially there'll be, and just at the beginning of the list, my scene will be empty. And so when I go to 3, it'll the difference is 3, and there's no 3 in the scene set. So I just add 3 to this set, and I go to the next element. 2 is 2 minus 6 is 4. Is that in there? No. So I add 2 to the scene set, and then go to the next element, which is 4. Difference of 4 minus 6, let's say 6 minus 4 is 2. It's 2 in the scene set. Yes, we just added it, and then we turn 2 and 4. Does it look right to everyone else? Does anyone have any issues with this? There should be some alarm in the sense that the return type is not correct, right? The return type should be indices, but here I'm returning the element itself. So there's another issue in this, right? In here, I had like the thinking of I should just return the element, but I'm supposed to return the index. So there's some other errors. I should not use the set, but I should use the dictionary. Dictionary is pretty much the same thing as a set. It's just you can have key value pairs and just keys inside a set. So this inside you just do some element equal to. On it, see if this works. Yep. Anyone have any questions on this? That is how I like to personally attack it. The benefit of this is even if I solve it from like, oh sweet, I know the optimized solution, it adds some area for conversation, right? So you write this and they're like, how do you optimize it? How do I optimize it? And you act like, oh, sure, I'm a genius. You add this optimized solution. But if you just go with optimized solution and they say, can you optimize this? You're like, there's nothing else I can do with this. So having the brute force allows for that conversation to start, and you can show off your thinking about it. Well, they kind of show you. Yeah. That is an inherent thing, and typically you might not even want to just like code it up. You can just write it in comments. You can just do like for every element. For every other element, if combination has target, return index. So you just write up, you just comment it out. So you're thinking out loud and think of like the most brute force. You're not the coding box a lot of time, a lot of analysis, but commenting out and just like pseudo coding it can be equivalent and won't cut up too much time. You can make sure you go to the next problem they have.
You can also ask the interview. They're okay with optimize, right? They want an optimized solution. Well, you better start thinking about different data structures or algorithms that you would want to apply to. And again, one of the main differences between doing an online assessment, like doing just submitting it asynchronously versus an in-person discussion, is that they really care about your thought process. How do you go through this? How do you talk through the why you made different decisions? And so it's okay if you do make, a small syntax error or there's some really weird edge case that you miss. Obviously, you want to get it for first try, but those matter significantly less in this type of one-on-one situation where they really care about how you came to that conclusion. Really, your communication skills is a big part about the entire interview process as well. So if you don't get it first try, that's perfectly okay. And even if you don't know the solution, interviews again are happy to help. They might give you a hint, maybe give you a place to start. And once you get that first idea, it might click. And from there, you can continue on and succeed in the rest of the interview. So it's okay if you don't get it first try. They're here to help you, and they really want to see how well you can learn and solve these problems.
Any other questions, comments, concerns? Sweet. Yes.
So,
Yes, that is what they expect, but also it helps you as well. Trying errors in your code. I think if you saw me going through this example here, with this code, I just verbally go through it to make sure no logical errors in this. It can be a little bit tedious, and you're like, okay, I wrote the code, let me just submit it, but it shows these interviews are more than just like seeing your technical skills, but also seeing how you work in the workplace. Even if you are just a guy that just submits and try to just keeps on submitting and try to see, which I definitely am. Show, yeah, I think through everything. I'm doing everything intentionally. I'm not just throwing things at the wall and seeing what sticks. So yeah, going through the problem, going through an example and just going through the code, just make sure there's no logical errors. One thing which this problem does not edge case as well. Think of edge cases is really useful in terms of writing up your code and going through examples as well, making sure you hit all the edge cases, because it's good to show that you're thinking of what are the limitations and if you're handling for any errors. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, I think what Gwen said about like asking if they want brute force, asking if they want optimized is a good way. I think just like mentioning the brute force, if they say like, yes, I do want the optimized version, just saying here's like the brute force, and typically the how solution works, you have brute force and you can go. That's the first stepping stone into the optimized. I think it's also like you don't have to ask like put the brute force and just wait with your twiddling your thumb waiting for them to ask you for the optimized solution. Like you can mention it yourself. Like you can go through this, and after you like, even if you just do the comment section, and if they're not saying anything, you think, yeah, this is a solution and it might work for initially, but if the size gets very large, for example, this nums length can be in the part 4, once it just gets even 50 or 100, it'll get pretty inefficient. So do you want me to go? Do you want me to code up the solution? Do you want me to go? I can think of the. I think just communicating back and forth, because just communication is essential. If there's one thing you take away from this, is like talk. Talk out loud. They want to make sure that you don't just like permanent crowd and then just will once you get the job, you just be on your own. They don't even know what exist. You want to talk out loud, talk to your. Yeah. I think it's useful to have like a part like if you have a friend, you guys can go through a call with a friend, but typically you can expect. whenever you want to start working on something. So one thing, the blind 75 problem, which are like the best, not like the top 75 questions that are useful to learn a lot of this concept. So if you can like get a lot of the concepts, similar how we had like the common topics here. If you just get these concepts done, that's also very useful. Making sure like, arrays, 2-pointer citing windows, stuff like that. But I just try to simulate with a friend is really, really useful. Having mock interviews talking about, because one half is solving another half. So yeah, try to have a mix. Any other questions? With that, we will have, you guys can fill out our feedback form. We do have a prize with this as well. So if you need to fill out the feedback form, scanning you all here, but also this QR code. We'll have a raffle to for our bank, but we'll fit the QR form. We'll do a spin the wheel and pick a random winner.
Also, practicing LeetCode is important to have consistency to do it. Oh, every day if possible, but I know with a lot of work starts piling up, it's difficult. We host weekly LeetCode sessions on Wednesday from 7 to 8 p.m. Our first one will be next week. I think it's going to be in here, ET 180. Yeah, come join us every Wednesday at 8 p.m. here. We'll go through a couple LeetCode problems, how to solve it, the thought process behind them, a little bit about the different techniques that you'll learn and how to analyze your own code. So again, make sure you practice these if you really want to go and get internships. These are the best ways to help players through these LeetCode problems and practice interviews with friends. If you have any questions, we'll be here for a little bit longer. And make sure you fill out the feedback forms. Raffle. The feedback form is very helpful for us. It lets us know what things you guys liked, what things we can improve. And by filling it out, it helps both us and you for future events. So it's very, very helpful. It really defines what this club is. We'll send all resources that we talked about and a little bit more that we found really helpful in the Discord after this meeting. So wait there. We'll send you a bunch of different resources. You can also find some online. But yeah. And we are almost, is anyone not filled out the feedback form that we're still waiting on? All right, cool. We'll wait a couple more minutes.
Just use the library.